Hello and welcome to this episode of Living Intentionally with Amy Smalarz. Today's guest is Gabrielle Polici, and Dr. Gabby, as many of us like to call her, is the author of Blissful Business, a courageous guide to creating your dream career in health and wellness. And now, Gabby's background and experience is definitely an interesting one, and she takes us through that journey a bit of how she got to where she is today. But one of the bigger things that she shares with us of how she went along that road is how she creates a vision for what she wants to create. And part of her creating that vision is over time has been developing this awareness of how she feels about what she's doing. And I know some of you may be thinking, what feel what you're doing? And in our discussions, we talk about, you can feel tense in your shoulders or feel that you're holding your breath. But being aware of how you're doing that and how your body's reacting is such a great way to realize if this is a part of the vision you want to incorporate, or do you want to change that a bit? And she takes us through some of the processes that she shares with her clients on ways of creating that vision, giving yourself space, and really having a mindfulness about you. So with that, I hope you enjoyed this episode with Dr. Gabby. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Living Intentionally with Amy Smalarz. And I am very honored and excited to have our guest today. And thank you so much, Gabby, for taking time to share with me and the listeners today.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Well, I would love to introduce you, but I always find that my guests do a better job of that, since it's your own life. But I'd love for you to take a couple minutes and introduce yourself a bit more to the audience and share a bit how you got to where you are today.
Sure. So my name is Dr. Gabrielle Polici. My clients and students call me Dr. Gabby. I've been a professor of holistic health and mind-body medicine for the last 10 years. And that was not really something I planned. It just sort of happened. When I was a young person, I was into dance and art and theater and modeling. And my first job was actually a modeling contract in Manhattan. And I was working in that industry, and it didn't exactly match my fantasy of what it would be like to do modeling and fashion and everything. It was kind of an uncomfortable, unhealthy environment. There was a lot of pressure to lose weight and look a certain way. And after about a year, I realized that was actually not the career path for me. And so I decided to go back to school. I did my undergraduate degree in psychology. And it was during that time that I was introduced to a lot of different holistic modalities like massage therapy and different kinds of wellness. And I just really fell in love with them. So I enrolled in massage school and some energy medicine trainings and continued with my education. And in my graduate program, I decided to research different kinds of alternative healing therapies. So I interviewed women who were practicing everything from chiropractic and acupuncture to different kinds of energy medicine and like indigenous healing modalities from different parts of the world. And the more I learned, the more excited I was. And I continued on that path. I did some yoga teacher trainings. And right around the time that I was finishing my doctoral work, my advisor invited me to teach a class. And that was back in about 2006, 2007. And I started teaching. And that's what I've been doing ever since. I've been teaching alternative healing therapies, meditation, yoga, nutrition, holistic counseling, different kinds of therapies for the mind and body. And most recently, I've transitioned to doing some career coaching and business coaching with other people who are building their health and wellness businesses and practices, helping them to find clients or set up their marketing or do all of those things that we need to do to have a successful health and wellness business. So that's kind of the short version of where I am and what I'm doing.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And I know I think that's one of the hardest questions because it's never, and I really enjoyed hearing you describe your journey because like many of us, it's not a straight road, right? You go into different areas of your life and kind of put it together. And with this, I would love, so hearing all of the rich background and variety of things that you've done, I love that. So when I say the words living intentionally,
Mhm.
what comes to mind? What does that mean to you?
Yeah, for me, it's having a vision for what you want to create and then making choices that are in alignment with that vision. So even though my path was windy and I had a lot of different kinds of jobs and worked in a lot of different kinds of environments, in each sort of section or chapter of my life, I had a really clear vision of what I wanted to experience, the kinds of people I wanted to meet, the places I wanted to go. And then I would make choices that were in alignment with that. And it wasn't just an external thing for me. For me, it was also an internal thing. So with the modeling, for example, the vision of where I was and what I was doing kind of matched up, but the way that it felt didn't match up. So there wasn't a strong integrity. There wasn't real healthy behavior. So the alignment internally was not matching up. So for me, intentionality is about having the inside and the outside match up with the choices that you're making and the direction that you're going.
Well, that, and I'm, as listeners know, I take notes while I listen to this, and I love what you were just saying about the inside matching the outside, and that's
Mm-hmm.
something. And you're an expert in this with all your experience, but I've found that the past few years I've been listening to more of the inside than just the outside,
Right.
and it's interesting because your body will have these visceral responses, and it's a matter if we listen to that, and and with that definition of living intentionally with the making choices with alignment and the matching, how do you bring that intention into your daily life?
I feel into everything that I'm doing. So you mentioned that the body gives you messages. So by listening to how the body is responding to things, to paying attention to, is my breath, rapid and short, or is it deep and relaxed? Are my shoulders tense, or are they like up in my ears? Do I like the interaction? Does the interaction with my clients or my students or whoever I'm working with, does it feel good, or do I feel drained after I interact with them? By paying attention to all of those things, I'm able to tap into whether or not I'm on the road or I've veered off into the bushes on the side of the road. So it's a consistent checking in, being mindful, listening, paying attention, and asking myself on a regular basis, like, does this feel right? Is this the right choice? Could we be making a better choice or a different choice that feels better? And just taking it one day at a time.
Well, and I'd love to push a little bit further on a couple of things that you just mentioned, because one of them that stuck out at me was consistently checking in. And so as someone, so I do that some, but not as often, and I know talking to other people, they have such great intentions of doing that and saying, yes, I get it. It makes sense. But what advice do you give to people to take that into the granular, to bring it in? How can they do that?
Right. Well, you have to have some space to do that. So if you're doing things back to back to back to back to back, like maybe you're a parent and you have kids and you have a job and you're just going from one thing to the next really rapidly, it's going to be really challenging to do that if you haven't trained your mind how to do it. So you have to create space for it, whether that means like setting a timer that you're going to take a time out for a minute or 5 minutes or whatever you can afford, or if it means getting up a little bit earlier and having a meditation practice in the morning. Whatever you can do to schedule little times where you can create that space, because mindfulness is something that you have to cultivate. It's not something that just happens automatically, and it's not something that happens unless you train your brain how to do it. So if you've gotten in the habit of just being really busy and never taking that time, then you might have to look at your calendar for next week or for next month, and you might have to block out an hour here, an hour there, a few minutes here, a few minutes there, where you can start to sort of implement different practices that will help you cultivate mindfulness and awareness.
Well, and that's something that I hear a lot of, and and talking with different people, not only for the show but with in other areas, is the blocking out and scheduling. And that's so important, that and the morning routine. And, with the blocking and the scheduling, is there a technique? Do you just sit down and say, okay, what am I going to do this week or this month? And how do you go about approaching that to bring that intent of, okay, let me give myself space and time to cultivate and develop that mindfulness? Or for folks who aren't as experienced as you, potentially some of your clients, what do you recommend that they do?
Yeah, well, my calendar in terms of like the major things that I want to accomplish for the year is planned a year in advance. So everything I'm doing from now until the end of the year, the major things like speaking at conferences or releasing a product or something, all of that's planned out in advance. So I kind of know what's going to happen for me on a high level for the whole year. And then I have scheduling software for my day-to-day appointments. So we scheduled this podcast, we scheduled a call before it. So I had some scheduling software that I used where I blocked out times that I was available for people to contact me. And I leave space in that calendar where people can't contact me because that's my space where I'm doing other practices for myself. And then when I do have the time for myself to do these practices, I try to make sure that within that time is time that I'm not on the phone, I'm not on the computer, I'm not on the TV, like there's quiet time. And I think one of the reasons why yoga and meditation has become more and more popular is because it's a practice of awareness. So you can go to the gym and you can work out, but if you're like listening to music and watching the TV and doing all these things, you're still in that very active part of your nervous system that is just very you know, very hyper, very distracted. You're not in the part of your nervous system where you can listen and you can hear your own breathing and you can hear the sensations of your body and you can feel into what's tight and what's not. And so in the times where I do schedule like fitness or downtime or self-care time, I try to make sure to allot time where it's not busy, there's not a lot of stimulation, there's not a lot of noise, so that I can do those listening practices. So I think that there's, a lot of different layers to how you do scheduling so that you can live with more intention.
Well, I totally agree with that. And something else that I heard you, at least with my ears when I was listening, I heard this idea of, scheduling for work and for appointments, but also making sure to schedule time for yourself and other things. And I think that's something that's really important too, because a lot of when you talk about, when you hear about scheduling, and many people, if they read about it, they think, oh, well, I need to block my work time. Mm-hmm. And then they don't necessarily do that for the other part of their life that is not necessarily around work. So I really appreciate you sharing that idea too, because I think we do need to give ourselves time. And that was a great way to talk about and present that, of having, personal and downtime and making sure that that's in your day or your week too.
Yeah, I think that used to be a natural kind of part of our schedules. Like it would be natural to spend evenings or weekends doing quote unquote nothing, which nothing was just like sitting around eating a meal with family members or going for a walk in the park or these kinds of things. But given the fact that technology is so embedded now in everything that we do, even downtime, like that natural downtime, isn't really downtime because you're still getting emails and text messages and social media pings, and like there's still so much stimulation. So I deliberately take what we call like no phone dinners with like friends and stuff, where we will go somewhere together, like out for dinner or something, and we're not allowed to bring our phones. Like, so there's just there's just, you're just present with each other. You're not taking selfies, you're not like sending messages. And so I deliberately do that. I'll take a walk or I'll take a meal with someone, and it's like a no phone walk, And I think that unfortunately, we have to set those boundaries because technology makes everything accessible all of the time. And so if we don't set those boundaries, then we don't have that space to just have, quiet calm mind conversation. Those good things that make us healthy and happy.
I know, human.
Yeah, being a human.
Well, and the setting boundaries, and that's something else too. And I think, I'm hearing in your description of and what you do, and even how you're talking, that you're very aware of setting those boundaries for yourself. And I think that's one of the ways, that you do live intentionally, is because you're able to do that and aware, right? To do that as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, as much I could always have a lot of other questions, and I'd love to have you back on the show. But I want to be, respectful of your time and of the listeners as well. But I also know that people are going to want to reach out and contact you and try to find you. So where's the best place for them to be able to reach out and learn more about you?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me all over your technology devices. I have a website, which is just my name, GabriellePolici.com, and you can find me on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all those things, also using my name. For your listeners, there is a free meditation download if you go to GabriellePolici.com/free stuff. If they want to practice a meditation visualization to help them think about where they're going and what life might look like in the future, I have a beautiful guided meditation that's available to them that they can download and start practicing. And I'm available to everyone. I do free discovery sessions. So if anybody wants to have a conversation with me about what we talked about today or anything else, I'm available for, free discovery sessions, and you can also schedule that through my website.
Oh, that's great. And thank you. And I will be sure all of those links will be on the website, the amysmalarz.com/podcasts for this particular episode. So, there'll be some notes and highlights from today's conversation, as well as all these references there. So to make it easy for folks
to
find
great.
You. So that'd be awesome. Well, thank you again so much. I really appreciate your time. And as always, I learn something new from each of these. So selfishly, I love doing this.
My pleasure, Amy. It was great to talk to you.
Great. Thanks. And have a great rest of your day.
You too.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Living Intentionally with Amy Smalarz. I hope you enjoyed listening to this episode as much as I had fun with our guest today. All of the information, the links, the resources that we talked about today, you can find on my website, amysmalarz.com/podcast. And you can also, not just today's episode, but all the previous episodes, you can find and look around. There's some really amazing guests, so I encourage you to do that. And just, if you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe on iTunes so you get this automatically. We're releasing 2 or 3 episodes a week, and so I don't want you to miss out on any of those episodes. And also rate and review. That helps so other people can find this as well. So thanks so much. I really appreciate your time. And remember, having intention is having direction.